a slowness that allows us to still embrace ourselves well into our 60s and 70s and 80s and still be able to work to your heart's content. And this is about recognizing the pace that you take on projects, the pace that you do the work allows the resilience and duration that comes from the human spirit. And this is where it's this connection of coming back to ourselves and getting out of our heads can make such a significant difference to the results we do achieve. I want to keep working. I am a doer. I like creating things and I still want to contribute in whatever form, way into my 70s and 80s. So learning how to slow myself down means I'm going to go the distance. I'm going to have the resilience to keep at it.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, business coach and value whisperer, Melitta Campbell, and I'm excited to be your guide in mastering meaningful marketing that you can deliver with ease and confidence. I developed value whispering, which is my approach to marketing and sales, 8 years ago after seeing too many talented coaches and experts lose out to the often inferior competition, and for just one reason: they struggled to communicate the true value of what they offered. Value whispering is the art of getting to know your true value, then weaving this through every interaction you have so you can naturally stand apart from your competitors, feel aligned in everything that you do, and have an impact that matters, even if you have a quieter personality. It's marketing made simple, straightforward, and impactful. But it doesn't happen by focusing on your business alone. It also requires self-leadership. And this has been confirmed time and time again on the show as my guests explain how they've learned the importance of being true to themselves, their values, and trusting their own instincts. This also ties into what I discussed last week, the importance of having clear boundaries that support you in achieving your goals your way. But it begs the question, how? How do you tune in to your intuition? That's why I've invited Karen Skidmore onto the show today. She's a pragmatic business strategist who helps business owners remain profitable, but not at the expense of their health and well-being. She sees profit not just in monetary terms, but in the more holistic sense of how we feel about the way we do business and the contribution we make to society. So in order to be truly profitable and remain motivated and creative over time, you also need to be connected to your inner self, your body, your senses, and your human spirit. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic further. But before we do, I want to invite you to come and join the Dream Clients Club. It's my free online community where you can discuss the themes from today's show and access free training, resources, and masterclasses to support your business growth. The live weekly sessions have taken a pause for the summer, but there are more than 20 masterclasses that you can watch and learn from over the summer. And in September, the last Magnetic Messages Challenge of 2024 will also be run within that community. So do come and join us. It's completely free and you will find us at melittacamble.com/club. Okay, so let's dive into how you can use your instincts to grow a healthy and thriving business. Hi, Karen. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Oh, hello. It's really good to be here. Thank you very much.
And I'm excited to speak to you because when we first met and we were talking about business and profit, and it was really interesting how quickly the conversation moved into intuition and energy and that side of things. And that's really why I invited you onto the show, because we have had more than 150 interviews now with successful women and a handful of men about what it takes to really succeed in business and in life. And we've heard time and time and time again that things work best when you're in alignment with your intuition, when you trust your gut, and when you go against what you know and feel is the right thing, but other people are saying, no, do this. That's when things start to fall apart a little bit. And when we start to distrust ourselves even. So I'm really excited to talk more about how do you start to tune into your intuition. And I loved the way that when we spoke before, you were talking about it, but in a very logical way, which worked perfectly for me because I'm way too much in my head. I know that. But it all made sense. So I'm looking forward to getting into that part of the discussion. But before we do, I would love it if you could share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do today.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey of getting out of one's head. And I think if there was a thread to go through my 30s, 40s, and I'm now in my mid 50s, it is learning how to slow down and trust oneself. Because if I go back to my 20s, I was really good at what I did. I didn't really know it much at the time. There was a lot of self-doubt, but I was a very capable, strong, independent woman who always came across as having a clear path, was competitive, almost like an alpha female type. And yeah, I had 5-year plans and 10-year goals and worked very hard. And I was a very good corporate player. You know, there was moments where I remember weeping at the bottom of the stairs going, I hate this, I can't stand this. But when I was in the world of work, I was playing well and I was played well. I was fitting up to what was expected of me. And as that work hard, play hard attitude went into my 30s, I became a mum, 2 young children. That's when kind of like the cracks started to appear and realizing that this isn't quite working. Okay, I'm just going to have to work harder at this to keep everything afloat. And on the outside, I always looked like I was extremely successful. I knew myself and I did most of the time, but it was those moments of just going, it's just too much, it's too much. So in the end, I did leave corporate life. I remember my boss at the time was going, great, so your daughter's going to start school. It means that you can pick up your hours. I was like, you're a dad, you have 2 young children yourself, and you have no idea how the school system works, do you? Because you go to work and it's wife at home who does all the childcare. So there was this weird sort of paradigm going on of going, well, my children are starting school. Talking to my husband about it, he definitely was a corporate man himself. And I made a decision. I was a senior director, a lot of responsibility. So the expectation was is that I was going to go back up to 4 to 5 days a week. And for that to happen, we would have to have quite a lot of childcare. And when we looked at the sums, we didn't have the salaries to cover a third person to come and childcare for us. And neither of us wanted that. So we both made the decision together that I was going to just step away, and I was getting disillusioned with all the corporate BS, to be honest. It was like, what is going on here? And there's more to life. So I retrained as a life coach, which back then, we're talking 2003, life coaching wasn't really a thing in the UK. I always remember somebody at work going, I can't believe you're training to be a life coach. Are you not worried about being in a swimming costume all day? And they thought I was training to be like a lifeguard. It was a new industry, a new profession here in England. And I started my first coaching company and it went on from there. I started the day that my daughter started school. She's now 24, my son's 22. And business evolved. But the thread really has continued on of learning how to get out of my head. And the big crunch point I got when I was 42, I had burnout. My working hard story carried on with setting up business. If you think of operating systems, my operating system was work hard, work harder. That's where I was always coming from. And that caught up with me. You know, the trigger was I lost my dad to cancer. I didn't deal with the grieving process very well. As a 40-year-old with 2 children, running a business, husband working flipping hard as well, I literally zipped all the grief up inside of me. And I know now, talking to other people who have gone through grief, as it comes out at some point. And it took 2 years to come out of me, and it came out as a adrenal fatigue, burnout, perimenopausal. It was a whole chemical bomb of imbalance, inflammation. And yeah, I was quite poorly. Even though at the time I knew logically I was ill, I still didn't do much resting. I was trying to still fix myself. So it took me several years after that to recognize that I had to change the way I was working, change the way I was approaching my health and my well-being. And I kind of like put myself in a bit of a slow progress, but really learning, well, how do I slow down? How does that look like? Well, still raising children, while still wanting to work, while still having big ambitions? How do you actively have a rest and manage your energy rather than going at everything full pelt? And, now I'm postmenopausal. My health, compared to where I was 10 years ago, is so much better. I still have my moments. I still have to actively manage my energy. I'm not this sort of person where I can just be out there generating all day and every day. So I have to be very, very aware of how I am and stay in my body and stay connected to my intuition. And because if I don't, I get carried away with the society expectations of work hard, and life is going super fast. And this is the work I'm starting to do more with my clients. And yeah, it's now settling into, it's the yin and yang of business is so important, about working the two together. But yeah, learning how to slow down has been the thread that has weaved through the last 3 decades of my working life.
Yeah, I love that story, and I can relate to so much of it. I used to work in corporate and I really, really loved it so much. But I founded a women's network because I just saw that we needed to start to give the women more skills, bring them together, enable that network. But that really encouraged me to take more space and take more time for me as well. And when I was pregnant, then I was kind of forced into that because I had such awful morning sickness for like 5 months. So my team had to pick up the slack. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm kind of putting about 60% in compared to the 120 that I used to put in. And everything still works. The team is brilliant. Everyone is happy. It's like, why have I been working so hard all this time? And as you say, we're kind of conditioned to work hard. I don't know about you, but the message I always had was, well, as a woman, you need to work twice as hard to prove yourself. And
Yeah.
so we really lean into that. Oh, I have to keep going. And it's just not true at all.
I grew up in my 20s with the Daily Mail headlines, which was all about women. And they were using the term empowerment back then, but it wasn't, because they were basically saying, you can have it all. You can have it all, ladies. You go for it. But that all came with such a high expectation. And this is, we're talking about the late 90s, that by having it all, it meant that we could work full time, we could pop out 4 children, we could bake cakes, and we could clean the house, and. So I grew up with that feminism approach that, yes, women can have it all, but let's define what our all is. Because I soon realised when I got to my 30s that I don't want that all. That's not the all that I want. This is my all. This is what I want. It's not trying to be that multifaceted woman who's got a baby on her hip and plugging away on a laptop and massive shoulder pads and all the rest of it. Very high expectations. It's just embedded into me, into my working life as a 20-something woman finding her way. And it's taken a long time to shed that armour and to feel really content with my own ambitions and still wanting to play big, but do it in my way that suits my energy flow as well and doesn't slowly kill me in the process, because that's what I ended up almost doing.
Yeah, exactly. I believe, yeah, we can have it all, but as you say, we have to decide for ourselves what all means. And all doesn't mean at the same time. It can come.
Yes,
This has been a
yes.
big lesson for me. I can have it all, but just one thing at a time. And then people, how do you get so much done? And it's like, well, because I don't do that much. I don't do as much as you think. I just focus on one project at a time over 90 days, get that done, complete as I want it, then move on to the next thing. And it's so much more efficient and works for me anyway, very well. But then you feel really accomplished rather than trying to do everything at the same time. And, if you've been listening to the show for a while, everyone's heard me say this before, but my favorite saying is that you can't ride 2 horses with one ass. So this idea of slowing down really leans into that. But as you said, it takes a long time to shed this expectation and everything that we've been told, well, this is what women do. Women can do it all, and they can cook and clean and look after the kids and run a business all at the same time. It's like, no, we can't.
Yeah. And I think this is what it definitely seen, and I've been talking about how fast the world has been going for, gosh, probably about 10 years,
Mm.
except for in the last 2 to 3 years, it is going at an exponential speed now. And technology, and I'm a huge fan of technology. This is not an anti-technology pitch in the slightest. I use AI in my business. Thank God for ChatGPT when my brain fog comes in, and it helps me articulate what it is that I'm trying to express. So I love the new technology that's coming through. However, human beings are expected almost to keep up with it. And what I'm seeing and what I'm sensing is that there is, so much anxiety now, women in particular being diagnosed with ADHD, a lot of mental health issues. And it feels like us, and this isn't just a female thing, this is a human being thing, is that the world is going so fast and there is so much awful, awful stuff happening out there in the world that the human soul is really struggling to keep up with the society and the cultures that we're all living in. So there is this weird pace of life that is just spinning faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's gone way beyond 24/7 society, being able to do emails on your phone and all of that malarkey. It's just gone up at another level in the last 18 months, 2 years, since AI has suddenly really moved so much technology and businesses along. And I just feel our human soul is really struggling to keep up with the speed of information, of expectations, of growth, of bigger, better, bolder. It's like, when is it enough? This is where I feel, as a woman who has gone through perimenopausal and the menopausal change, I do feel that this is a great opportunity for women to see menopause as a gift, to learn how to go at a human being rate, a slowness that allows us to still embrace ourselves well into our 60s and 70s and 80s and still be able to work to your heart's content. And this is what I'm talking about with slowing down. It's not talking about retirement and giving up on your dreams. It's about recognizing the pace that you take on projects, the pace that you do the work is done, that allows the resilience and duration that comes from the human spirit. And this is where it's this connection of coming back to ourselves and getting out of our heads and really connecting into our bodies can make such a significant difference to the results we do achieve. Because I want to keep working until, I keep saying this, I'm going to live to 100. I made that decision when I was in my mid-40s because that helped me understand that, well, once I hit 50, I'm halfway. So I've lived half my life. So that was the good kick up the booty I needed to then start looking at my fitness levels and coming back to the gym, coming back to making sure my body is going to be a vehicle for me for the next 50 years. Because without that, I think I could have just merrily just slouched further and further into putting on more weight and just literally slowing down and not getting off the sofa, which was not going to be healthy for me. But I also know I want to keep working. I am a doer. I like creating things. I like being in the commercial world of business, and I still want to contribute, whether that's commercially, socially, in whatever form. But I still want to be contributing way into my 70s and 80s. So learning how to slow myself down to be able to achieve what I want to achieve means I'm going to go the distance. I'm going to have the resilience to keep at it.
Yeah. And it's so important. I remember reading a book. It had the brilliant title, I Know What to Do, So Why Aren't I Doing It? And I was like, yes, that is the book I need to read. And I think I read it about 6 or 7 years ago now. It's by a guy called Dr. Nick Hall. And he made the point in that book that there's no such thing as too much stress. Stress is actually good for us. It forms our character. It shows us what we're capable of. It gets things done. He said, but the problem comes in when we don't have enough counter stress. So whatever stress, we have to balance that out with, at least in equal time, doing something completely different. This is where our creativity can come in and we can balance things out. And if you don't have that balance and you keep going, then that's when the burnout comes, because we can keep going so far. But as you experienced, when we have an emotional event on top of that, that's the thing that topples everything. And but if you have your stress in balance, you have that space, you can cope with any emotional things. And these days, as you said, anxiety is going through the roof. We're realizing we have all of these different neurodivergent ways of thinking to understand. And I really feel that we're taught as women to sacrifice our dreams, our needs, ourselves. But I think sacrifice means giving up something for something better. And that you were saying there about we need to decide where we want to spend our time. Do we want to invest in AI? Is that going to help us? But to decide, well, what are those sacrifices that are going to make my life better? And and really actively choose. And I was reading a brilliant book. I read a lot of books. Essentialism, which I really love because it's all about
Oh, yes. Yes, I read that book. Yes.
yeah. And early on in that book, he makes the point that with the first generation that has had to decide stuff. You know, no generation before has had a choice of careers or a choice when they have kids or a choice where they go on holiday, a choice of anything. So we haven't generationally built up the ability to decide things for ourselves. So we are just learning. We're babies in this whole deciding things era. And I think this is something that we can use our intuition to help us make those right decisions for us, tune into what we want. What is the pace? What do we want to do first, second, and third? So we can start to prioritize and keep that balance and keep an eye on not just what we want to achieve, but what do we want to contribute? As you said, particularly as women, that's something that's so important for us, that contribution part. So I think we need to think about balance a little bit differently. Sometimes it's more helpful that way. That would normally naturally lean into the intuition side, but I want to take a little step back because you do have a book there behind you called True Profit Business. So I wanted to ask, what does that mean and how can we lean into the profit but also have balance? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah. So true profit came from the recognition that to run a business, it's commercial. If you're not making a profit, I mean, even if you're running a charity or social enterprise, you still have to make a difference between what's coming in and what's coming out, because otherwise it's just not happening. You've got a job. It's like you might as well just go and work for somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to go and work for other people. But if you're running a business, there is absolutely the focus that profit needs to come out of it. But what I was starting to see, and I did probably about 6 or 7 years of my business. I was working around internet marketing. I did a lot of teaching around digital funnels. I ran a membership site teaching people about social media marketing. I love the tech. I can still teach a funnel with my eyes closed and hands tied behind the back. I still can geek out of a really good funnel. I do not teach funnels anymore. It's not the right energy for me. I spend too much time in front of the screen. But I was doing a lot of work in that. And then when you were relating it to the business, a lot of the messages that were coming out of the world of business back in 2015 to 2018 was all about driving money. It was all, again, that work hard, push, drive. And I don't like using masculine energy to say that males are bad in business. That's not here, but it's that masculine push, the yang, if you like. That's why I often use yin and yang as opposed to masculine and feminine. But there was a lot of yang, masculine push, making profit. And what I was beginning to realize is like a world where we're going with running our own businesses here is that we are only using one method of growth. Growth comes from X amount of revenue, X amount of profit. And so this is when I sort of came back to actually going, well, what does profit actually mean? If you look at the dictionary definition now, it is about the difference between cost and revenue. And it's a number that allows you to see the profitable success of a business. But if you go back, and I love looking at the etymology of words, and you go back to the history of it, profit goes way, 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 way back, hundreds of years. And it actually means do good, to have purpose. And so when we come back to the real meaning of the word profit, and you start to then come into, well, why am I running this business? Why am I working so flipping hard and having good stress? Because I agree with you on that point. This is not about having no stress in your business, because We need a few little stressful situations to keep us motivated, to keep us in the game, if you like. If it was so easy, I think most people would just go, well, there's no point. But like, what is the real reason that you're running the business? And it's that enough concept of, well, how much money do you want to earn from your business? Are you paying off your mortgage, for example? Have you decided that actually you'd like to have 2 foreign holidays a year rather than the 1 foreign holiday a year? Maybe you want to send your kids to private school. Maybe you want to put money aside in your pension. When you can start to define the reasons why you're making money, you can then decide how much that is, and then that becomes your true profit. You start to recognize, what's the contribution I'm making in my business? How much money do I really truly want to make for my business? Not what someone's told me, oh, I could turn this into a 7-figure business. Oh, you could make so much money doing that, because that puts us on the never ending work hard, work hard, work hard, they're never going to stop conveyor belt. And then when you can decide, what is your big why behind it? Money aside, what are you getting from this work? Is it the joy of creating something? Is it the joy of working with clients and their transformation? Everybody has very different motivations to why they do what they do. And when you can hook into those things and see them holistically, then that becomes your true profit. So the business still has a very strong, and this is why I've always had a foot in 2 camps. We have to have the commercial, logical, financial aspect to it, because that keeps us very grounded. It gives us structure, it gives us processes, it makes things viable. You can start to make decisions about, hey, let's do some advertising. Okay, well, how much is advertising? What's the return on investment you're going to get? You can make some logical decisions. But likewise, I have the other foot firmly in the spirituality camp of, why? What is this all for? What am I contributing? What's the value I'm getting to make myself feel of worth? What am I getting back from this? What are my clients getting back from this? What's the bigger picture behind it? And when you can bring it from both sides, it means that you can make some really great decisions about your direction, because then you can trust your instinct. You're coming back to instinctively what you know about business. And most people, to be honest, don't realize how much instinctively they do know. That DNA within them, they just got something in them that they forget to tune in to what's there, as well as the intuitive approach of the whispers and the yearnings and the what ifs, if you like, and balance that off with the commerciality of it and just sanity checking backwards and forwards. You suddenly got some really good decision making to be had. And it works for you, not necessarily for the masses or what everybody else is doing and what LinkedIn algorithms are showing you today, etc., etc. So that's where that book came from. It's a very practical book. I wrote it back in 2019, came out in 2020, which was interesting for the book tour. I had all these speaking gigs lined up. As Business Book Awards a finalist as well, and I had lots of things cancelled in the March of 2020. Funny that, but that book was a really great snapshot of where I was, of putting together a process on how do you build a business, that you are choosing the right model, the right products and programs and services, along with the systems and processes and the teams to give you what you need, to give you both the profit, the money side, as well as the lifestyle and the values that are important to you. So it is a very holistic way of looking at business, but very grounded in the commercialities of it all.
I love the focus on balance and what is meaningful for you, what you want, but also how you can use what you have to make a difference. And I think that aligns so much with the value whispering principles, where it's like, we want to make a difference for your clients in a way that only you can, but it has to be grounded in what you really want, what's going to make you feel proud and motivated, and that you're growing all the time as well. And I think with business, as you say, we tend to look to what we should be doing instead of, I'm always saying, if it works for you, it works, and I believe, like yourself, we have so much more understanding of business and marketing and sales than we think, because it's how we interact as humans. It's how we've developed as a community. It's been sort of formalized now in companies, but it's just how we relate to people and make things happen. We know more than we think. So yeah. So Let's come to the intuition then, because as I said, we have heard it so often on the show that when you are in tune with your intuition, when you have that gut feeling and you go with it in a positive way, things start to work. But it takes some trust and courage, I think, to start going in that direction and to recognize that it's our instincts that have driven us in a certain way and made us successful, because we have learned to distrust that, or it can't be that simple. We have to be able to prove it on a spreadsheet if it's real, So yeah, how do we move from our heads into our body and really feel our way forward in business?
I think, from what I've learned, and this is what I now teach my clients, is that the first thing is actually physically feeling the difference between being in your head and being in your body. And I remember being on a workshop, this is many, many years ago, and it was about women's health. And I was asked to connect with my pelvic floor. And I remember lying on my yoga mat, and we were just really simply going through just the process of connecting with pelvic floor and tightening and loosening the pelvic floor muscles. I couldn't. I had no signals going from my head to my pelvic floor. So with the simple instruction, and all these women around me were going, "Oh yeah, I can feel it, yeah, tightening their things." And I was like, I'm literally got nothing there. And of course, the more stressed I got by not connecting to muscles, the more I couldn't feel it. And I ended up sobbing in this middle of the room going, I can't feel it, I can't feel it. And that for me was a massive wake up call that I had lost the neuro connections, because everything was in my head. And that was quite an extreme situation. But actually, by just coming through and just simply feeling your body in the sense of where is the other brains, and a simple act that, I mean, when I first started teaching this, it felt really, really weird. And now it's like, it's just part of what we do in our business growth programs. It's like, right, okay, you're all in your heads at the moment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're not going to use this head, because we all know that our brain, our logic, everything like up here is generally the default that people go to think through a problem, and borrowed phrases, and we use all of this. But actually the brain only knows what we've experienced. It's a machine that automatically processes things. We have got two incredibly strong brains in our body that we rarely use. One is our heart brain and one is our gut brain. And our gut brain, which we now know from science over the last, oh my gosh, 10, 15 years, the amount of, I think is it 90% of our serotonin, or is it 80% of our serotonin? I can't remember the figures now, come from our gut. What we eat, everything in our gut brains, so they're not brains as such, but they program our bodies from a health point of view, is so much stronger and more powerful than what goes up in the brain that we consider to be the brain. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've got our heart brains, which people go, well, the heart's there, it's just pumping blood. That's the practical medical. But actually, we know how much love and connection comes from, and we just know it physically. Even people who are so in their heads will subconsciously touch their chest when they talk about, oh my God, I just love this piece of chocolate cake. If you just think of those terms, it is so easy to put your hands there, because that's the strength of the power of the heart brain. So when we're starting out, one of the simplest and easiest things that you can do is to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your gut. And when you're thinking about business decisions, you're thinking about stuff in your business. And I often put my right hand on my heart and my left hand on my belly, whatever's comfortable. I've got a nice little apron belly, so it's a nice thing to hang into. It's another benefit of just having a bit of minnow belly on there. It gives the signals to your body that that's where you're seeking the information from. And it's a really practical way of helping you tune into your intuitive self of what your body might be giving you the answers. And from here, you can start to really settle in. Now, this takes a lot more practice. And if you're really in your head, you might be thinking, well, come on then, give me the answers. It is about relaxing. It is about finding more moments of mindfulness. If you go for a daily walk to get your steps in, Maybe go and walk in nature and don't count your steps once in a while. Notice, use your senses around when you're in nature, of the flowers and the bees buzzing or whatever you're hearing. It doesn't necessarily mean more meditation sitting around with your legs crossed, trying not to think of anything for 10 minutes. There's lots of ways of using mindfulness that doesn't necessarily mean sitting around trying to be meditating Buddha, for example. But that can be a really easy, practical first step I often teach, particularly women who are stuck in their heads, is one hand on heart and one hand on belly, and have a conversation from that place. It starts to build the neural pathways that actually you're instructing yourself to come to your heart and to your gut for answers, for conversations, rather than going up into the head. You probably see it yourself, or you'll see it with your clients when they're seeking answer. When their eyes go up, they're often looking to their brains for the answers. It's literally the brain's going do. If you can close your eyes, one hand on heart and one hand on belly, and ask the question from there, you automatically lower yourself when you come from here. So that can be a really practical, simple way to practice and to have a bit of fun with it. Some days you'll go, oh my God, this is just amazing. I can totally hear what the answers are. Other days you're going, come on. And it might be that you just need to just relax and stop, move away, come back to it later on. But yeah, the more that you can relax the body, come out of sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic nervous system and start relaxing the body, the more likely you are to hear the answers and to trust yourself. It takes practicing it every day, every week. Some days it works, some days it's not so. But it is over time, you start to reprogram the way that you are seeking your answers. And yeah, as you say, trust can be hard when you're stressed or anxious or full of worry and juggling lots of things and multitasking and late for meetings and dashing from one thing to another. When you say to somebody, trust the process, when they're in that state, they're probably going to punch you in the nose. So, recognize where your anxious and worry states are and work on lowering those to help you to trust the process. Because when you're relaxed and you feel everything's okay, and you know what your numbers are in the spreadsheets, and you've done your financials, and you're clear in your why, and you know the contribution you want to make, then funnily enough, you trust, because you just do. That's where it comes from. So it's not something you can take a pill or go on a weekend course on or fix in, an hour on a masterclass. But over time, and lots of practice and integrating lots of things into your day, into your week, into your year, it happens. It does happen. I'm proof of it. I'm very proud of where I've come from. And now I'm through the menopause, and I do see it as a gift that women can use the menopause to embrace it and use it as a process of slowing down and connecting to one's heart and one's gut, and use that intuition to help guide us as we're going into our 50s and 60s and beyond.
Yeah, I had a great way of thinking about the menopause a while ago, and this woman was saying all our lives we have given our creativity away. We've either flushed it down the toilet every month or put it into our children, but after the menopause, it's all for us. That creative energy we have every month is just for us to use. So I really like that perspective.
Yeah.
But one thing I know, or I've recognized, is that the language of the body is subtle. And until we don't listen to it long enough, and then we really break.
Yeah.
But is there, maybe there's no answer to this, but is there a way that we can know when we're in tune with our body, when it's our mind? Because I'm just thinking, if I'm doing this for the first time, how will I know? And
where's that question coming from? That's the brain going, yeah, but how will you know? It's wanting a logical answer.
How do you trust? My brain is just going in circles here. But however, when I do have a problem and I go for a walk or have a bath or switch off, often these answers just come. You think, oh, yeah, why was I so stressed about it? I just need to do this. Is that the moment of tuning in with your body and switching your brain off for a bit?
Yeah, and I think you've hit a bit of a nail on the head there. It is a state, and as soon as you are worried and stressed, this is not about taking yourself off to a cave in a mountaintop and having no worries, because we live in real life. We have families, we have parents, we have problems, we have bills to pay. We live in a life that has to have us show up real. So if we didn't have any problems, we would be living up in a cave in a mountain. And as lovely as that might sound for a day or two, I would hate that, because I'd be so far removed from humanity, and I would probably get so bored. I'd want to get back down the mountain and start, creating problems to solve, because I think that's where most of us feel in tune with it. But it's when it gets pushed onto when we are multitasking and we are putting too many things in our diary, or we are trying to meet other people's expectations, or we suddenly realizing, hey, this is this person's agenda, this isn't what I want, hang on a minute, I thought this is what I wanted, but it's not. So when we are faced with those situations, we then have choices about how can we bring that down. And we've come back almost like a full circle to what you were saying about that book you read about stress. We're always going to have a certain amount of stress in our lives, because that's what keeps us on our toes. It keeps us doing things, but if we have got too much, if we're not balancing it out, and we're not spending time de-stressing and spending time creating for the joy of creating, like painting or doodling or colouring in, or making daisy chains on your front lawn, or whatever that might be, spending time not doing things for the sake of doing things, and finding those moments, the body is always going to be in that stress situation all of the time. And it is, frankly, it is hard. And goodness me, I've had years of my body being like that. And people used to say, trust the process. And I would literally just want to punch them in the face, going, what are you talking about? But I've got to fix it. So you've got to be able to bring the body systems down. And, it can take a very long time. And I speak from experience. From literally not being able to get out of bed when I was 42, it took me about another 3 years to feel like I was functioning again. And I look back and I thought I was getting better. But of course, when you go back and see your illnesses, you go, my God, you were still so poorly. I then went through a phase of being afraid. I was feeling ready to step up and do more things. But then I had so much fear about getting ill again. And I spent another couple of years really working on that fear of, I don't want to go back like this, but I can't do nothing. I have to move forward. So it can take a very long time to get through adrenal fatigue, burnout. There is no easy, quick 6-step formula. It can take many months, if not many years. But with that, it gives you that resilience that now when I do, at the moment we're dealing with both my mum and my mum-in-law literally moving houses the same week. And there's quite a lot of stress. There's a lot myself and my husband are dealing with. But interestingly, I'm really chilled through the whole process. I can feel my heart rate go up. Like this morning, I was just texting my mother-in-law and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But I recognized it, I sensed it, that I was texting her about something, and then went, oh, okay. And I just allowed myself to come back down again. It's much easier to ride out the stressful levels, because I'm much more in tune with recognizing those levels of stress and then going, right, what can I just do to balance it out again? So once you start to really practice it, it means that you can, ride the ebbs and flows of life. And it's not necessarily about work-life balance, because I think we also need to change the language all around that, because you can't find balance for more than maybe an hour or two, maybe a day. And then something happens and you go off kilter again. And it's how resilient you are in dealing with the ups and the downs. So yes, I don't know if that was the answer to the question that you asked. I can't remember what the question you asked there, but this was saying I can't promise any quick fixes here. It is about practice. For me, the two modes that I have found that have really worked for me, and I've now trained in them, and this is what I'm bringing into my work now, is sound therapy. I fall in love with Himalayan bowls. I receive a lot of sound healing. I give a lot of sound healing as well. And also embodiment, dance, the power of moving your body to music in a way that it opens up your energy points in your body. So for me, I I never really thought I was much of a meditator. I couldn't, and I still, I probably can sit and, meditate for 10, 15 minutes, but I'm always wanting to move. So for me, sound therapy and embodiment dance are the two vehicles that have really helped me connect with my body. And I've seen it with other women as well who are like me. They want to do things that feel that can, they're not just being able to just, told to, you need to meditate more, do nothing for 10 minutes. Because that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do. It was for me anyway, in my years when I was being told that.
I really struggle with meditation, and guided meditations are a little bit easier, but then I tend to fall asleep at some point anyway.
Falling asleep's okay because you really are then dropping your parasympathetic nervous system there. So rest is important. Afternoon sleeps when you're in your 50s. Oh my God.
I love a good nana nap.
Yes. Good. Exactly. Nana naps. That's exactly that.
So it sounds like in order to tune into this intuition, tune into our bodies, it comes back to what you said right at the very beginning, that we need to slow down. So my next question, which is definitely coming from my head again,
I love it.
How do we do that? How do we slow down? How do we give ourselves permission to take a few things off our calendar and create that balance and feel okay with that as a first step? Because I'm sure once you get into it, you will see the benefit. You'll see, oh, when I use more of my creativity, I actually have more resilience and more joy and different perspectives to bring on. I'm sure it will all come together in time, but getting started in the first place.
It is a really good question, because you are spot on. Once you start to recognize the benefits of slowing down, it rolls really fast. You start integrating it, and actually even there's moments where you think, God, I'm not slowing down, but you are, because you're slowing your nervous system down. It means you can still do things super fast, but you're doing it in a way that you are very mindful about things and you're not multitasking. That's one of the keys to it. But it's a really good question, is like, where do you start? Now, my advice to most people when they're in that situation is, I'm going to pick you as a great example. What's your diary like over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks? When you think of what you've got to do, not necessarily just scheduled like appointments in your diary, but things to do, what does it feel like over the next 4 to 6 weeks?
My stomach is already clenching a little bit. And I think I've been quite good at keeping space. And I do take a big step back in the summer. So I usually have weekly community events I run for free, but we don't run those. I give myself a bit more space. And I've noticed in the summer, a lot of my clients have children anyway, or are going on holiday. And so they're not available. So we jointly take things a bit slower. However, my brain is already filling that gap with, oh, I can get my book done. I can start developing this new program that I've been thinking about. Oh, all of these videos that I've been thinking of doing. So,
and so it's interesting, your immediate reaction was like your stomach clenching. So this is it. And I think you are a great example of what is typically going on for a lot of particularly women who are juggling work, business, family, whether you've got kids or not, summer holidays. Your brain is full of ideas. You've got lots of things that you want to do. What my advice is that it's very difficult to find space in the short term, in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. If I was to say, right, I want you to find some space to do nothing in the next 3 or 4 weeks, you'll probably just go, I can't. Yeah. So my advice is always to go, right, where's the point in the diary where you haven't got things scheduled? There aren't things that you know you're going to do that month. And it's usually anything between 2 and 3 months in advance. That's what usually tends to happen, is that women like me and you will often have everything all sorted out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. You know where you're going socially, work-wise. And to start putting in what I call the fire breaks, the gaps in your diary. I'm a huge believer of having white space. And I use the term white space because I use color coding in my diary, because it helps me energetically flow through the week as well. So I color code my diary. So I use the term white space as having literally a white space. And if you look at how forests get managed, huge, and how they stop big forest fires breaking out, they have fire breaks. They have strips of land, don't they, where they cut all the trees down so that if a fire does blaze through, in theory, it doesn't go to the next set of, hundreds and thousands of hectares because there is a fire strip down there. And this is where the white space works really well. It stops the fire of busyness racing through your diary from one week to the next month to the next month to the next month, and you just feel you don't stop. Okay. So my advice is always to go to the point in the diary where it is not so busy, and you start planning your white space from a place there where you've got less resistance. So rather than trying to fix where you are here today, start planning for the medium term. And what you'll see there is that it will start putting into the habits of, where is my white space? Where is the bits where I am going to just leave open for, I don't quite know what I'm going to do that day. And again, that throws up probably a little bit of fear factor of, but that's a waste, but I'm not being productive. That's not a resourceful way of spending my day if I'm not doing anything. So it's also challenging you to recognize what it means to have a day with nothing planned. And it might not even be a day. If a day is too much, then make it a morning, make it an afternoon, make it an extended lunchtime. Don't start work till 11 o'clock, for example, if possible. So make the rules fitting in with you, but make it a long enough space that it feels a bit uncomfortable to have nothing planned. How does that land with you?
Yeah, I like the idea of going out a few weeks to where it is already less hectic, putting in those fire breaks, as you say, so that when you get to that point, you don't have to grapple with anything. You've already got that space because you can set it on your Calendly or whatever, just to keep that for you doing nothing, and then take that courage to prove to yourself that you do fill it with things that are working for you, rather than being pulled into everything else. And yeah, I really like that. And I can't remember who said it, but someone quite big and famous, show me your diary and I'll tell you how successful you're going to be. And I always assumed that meant your diary should be just packed full of appointments. Otherwise, you're not going to be very successful. But when you were talking, I was thinking, well, what if the diary of a successful CEO does have these gaps? And I think in that book, Essentialism, he gives the example of the CEO of a rather large company, again, I can't remember which one, but who did exactly that. He kept a week, a month. It was quite a big space where he does nothing but give himself the space to be creative in his business and see what he feels in that moment is needed for himself or his business or his team. There is no appointments, there's nothing planned. And for a top CEO to do that, then this is a signal that we can all do it and benefit from that.
Yeah, but it's huge, because if you think of some of the words you've used there, you cannot feel into your creativity when you are back to back in Teams calls. It's like you are being driven by process and other people and external influences. And yes, you can absolutely bring your intuition into those moments, but it's very hard when it's bomb, 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 bomb. And particularly as I know how so many people's diaries are being run, this work from home now is amazing. But the problem I have seen this is that it's been replaced with a back-to-back of Teams calls or Zoom calls with no opportunity to go and walk to the local coffee shop to go and get a cup of coffee, or to be able to walk between meetings, have water cooler moments, because it's so easy just to have meetings from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, boom. You just can't. And also as well, the science between recognizing how much energy is used in a screen meeting like this compared to being in a meeting room with human beings. We are using almost too much mental energy. It's why I often use things like hide self view on Zoom, for example, because you not only you're paying attention to the person you're speaking to, but you're seeing yourself back as well. We're using a lot of brain energy there, and that can be exhausting. And then you're suddenly going, oh, why am I not being creative? Why can't I hear my intuition? Well, because it's been literally sucked out of you. You are fatigued. This is why having space in your diary. And I know when I look at my diary, the times I've gone back to back to back, I've had some really productive weeks. It's been great. But if I don't have those white spaces, I do not have those days where I haven't planned and I don't know what I'm going to do, can sometimes be the most incredibly productive days because I've just thrown myself into something, the joy of creating something, and sometimes it's not even work related. That's what then gets me the energetic flow to carry me forward for the next week. It's very interesting when we start managing diaries to suit our energetic intuition flows. So just try that simple technique of putting in some white space in your diary and watch how your brain really fights with, but what are you going to do with it? Play with it. It's changing the operating systems that you have within you. It's more than just having, what your belief system is. It's literally reprogramming to be able to connect with different parts of you rather than just using your logic brain.
Yeah, I love how simple that is, and we could all do that today. We don't have to wait. And we have every week in the Dream Clients Club, the community that goes along with the show, we have a podcast chat where you can come and contribute and share your thoughts on each episode. So if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to come and share a snapshot of your empty diary. Let us know when that's going to be and what happened as a result. That'd be really interesting to see. Yeah. So Karen, you've shared so much and I've just been nodding along and loving this because I can just relate to so much of it. And now I've got a start point as well. I know exactly what to do. Is there anything you feel that we've missed that would be helpful for listeners as they create more space, slow down and feel comfortable doing that and then getting back into this creativity, this joy, this balance that we seek?
I'm going to finish off, and it is probably something that is being said again and again, and you'll probably roll your eyes when I say it, but put your phone down. Don't sleep with your phone. Doom scrolling is not good for your brain activity. How we're using our phones now is really hindering. And I'm not perfect. I'm not coming from a place of I only go on my phone for 30 minutes a day. That's just a load of rubbish. But I also know when I'm overusing it and when I'm using it as a crutch for I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So just watch how you're using it, but genuinely watch yourself of how you're using your phone. Is it supporting you or is it a crutch and distracting you? Because that is a huge, huge problem that we are all faced with because phones are part of running our lives. I wouldn't be without it. But be really honest with yourself about how you're using your phone. It can take us away from our instinct and intuitively what we know is best for us. So
I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. But I like your idea of with no judgment, just check in with yourself. Why am I doing this right now? What's it doing for me? Is it helping me or hindering me? And I think that's going to be a really powerful question to ask and to think, oh yeah, no, I don't need to be doing this right now. Brilliant. Karen, thank you so much for being so generous today.
You've asked brilliant questions, and I love talking this way because it opens me up and explores my thinking and helps me articulate it. So I've loved it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. If people want to know more about you and your work, where's the best place for them to find you?
So my main website is karenskidmore.com. I have a new brand called Seratina. So you can go to seratina.co.uk, which has my sound and dance embodiment work on there. But the easiest place, if you just want to come and say hi, is find me on LinkedIn, Karen Skidmore. I'm very active on that platform. So that's come and find me, connect with me and send me a message saying, hi, I listened to your podcast. So yeah, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, and bring your diary entries.
Yes.
Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have found this episode valuable and have started to find your version of what a profitable business is all about and are able now to take those next steps to drop from your mind into your body, have that connection with your instincts so you can grow a thriving business alongside a thriving sense of purpose and contribution and fulfillment as well. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please do take a minute to help another business owner to grow by sharing this show with your network and business besties. And I would love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts because it really does help more business owners to find the show and benefit from all of the wisdom that my guests have shared. And again, I would love for you to come and join us in the Dream Clients Club and to take advantage of all those masterclasses, training and resources that are already loaded in there for you that you can enjoy at your own pace during the summer. You'll find us at melittacampbell.com/club. There are more tools, tips, and insights coming up for you in the next episode, which will be our last one before we take a summer break. So don't miss next week's show, or best still, subscribe now so you never miss your weekly dose of inspiration. I've been Melitta Campbell, your value whisperer and business coach, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.